Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of Input Junkie Satellite. One of our fans sent us a really cool recording he made of him interviewing his grandfather about superheroes, old-time radio, the Lone Ranger, just all sorts of really cool, geeky goodness. We think it's so cool that we want to share it with you, with permission, of course. So here it is, Jonathan Bell interviewing his grandfather, Stuart Susskind. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Bell. Today I'm here with my grandfather, Stuart Susskind. How are you doing today?
Pretty good today.
That's good. So a few months ago, you were at my house and we were just talking about some superheroes, some radio, movies. First of all, can I mind if I ask you how old you are?
77.
Just a few years away, Superman would come into our world. Pretty cool. So what was your first introduction to superheroes?
When I was a kid, well, I have a sister who's 5 years older. So when she was about 9 or 10, she was listening to some of the superhero radio programs. They were on for 15 minutes after school. I remember Little Orphan Annie and Mandrake the Magician were the earliest of my memories. As I grew older, I started to listen to serials on the radio on my own. And there were many heroes, mostly having to do with the war.
Mm-hmm.
Hop Harrigan, Ace of the Airways, was one of my favorites. Then there was Don Winslow of the Navy, Dick Tracy, there was Superman, and
Yeah.
there were always cowboys too. Tom Mix, Captain Midnight, Terry and the Pirates.
Yeah, I
There
guess
were
the
a
list
bunch of
goes
them.
on and on.
Yeah, there were a whole bunch of them. They went from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon till about 6 o'clock, 15 minutes each. And then after that, comic books became something that, at kindergarten and first grade, we looked at comic books. We didn't read them because we couldn't read yet.
Right.
We looked at the pictures.
Yeah, and you still get a huge bit of the story just from the pictures.
Just from the pictures, that's right.
Just like a picture book.
And we all, as kids, we all had a collection of comic books.
Right. But you wish you still had some of those comic books,
I wish I did.
you know? I mean,
Some of them are worth a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know one of the comics is worth over $1 million.
In good condition, I think.
Yeah, like in close to
Yeah.
mint condition.
Yeah, Action Comics.
Yeah, action comics, those go
Yeah.
for a lot.
Yeah. And Batman and Robin comics were very popular also.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel,
The Flash?
Flash Gordon. I don't know about the Flash.
Oh, okay.
Flash Gordon was very popular.
So when did you, stop reading comic books?
Oh, geez, probably up till, I don't know, 6th grade, 7th grade, probably is when we stopped.
So when did you, was there a reason? You just lost interest?
Just,
moving
I guess
on?
lost interest. And also TV had some very, very good programs. Superman was on TV then.
Oh,
So
yeah.
was Batman. It was campy, but...
Yeah, what did you think of that Adam West?
Well, it was a big disappointment because I don't know if they intentionally did it, but it was so silly and campy that... And Batman Comics was very serious.
Yeah, it was.
And it was kind of a detraction, and it was a disappointment
Mm-hmm.
from what Batman, my image of Batman, was that he was
Right.
very serious. And the crooks were very serious, too. They were
Right.
not silly.
Yeah, not selling bumbling idiots.
No. Insane, maybe. but not
Yeah,
idiots.
insane.
Yeah, insane, I think.
Yeah. So I guess you saw the 1966 Batman. They also made a
Yeah.
movie in 1966 based
Yeah.
on the TV show.
It was okay.
That was the first Batman movie.
Yeah, it was decent, but I thought that the Joker was in that one, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, a little bit extreme.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I would have much rather they stick to the story.
The shark repellent,
Yeah.
the bat repellent.
Yeah.
You know.
And I thought was the Penguin in the movies or that was the TV? I forgot.
Um,
the Penguin was one of his arch villains.
Yeah.
They did it. They made him very silly. I forgot
Mhm.
whether TV or movie.
Yeah, they've done it both.
Yeah.
How do you think from the comics? How do you think they've done with later media?
Yeah, the movies eventually got very, very serious, and they started to give Bruce Wayne a personality and a
Yeah.
bad childhood and a background. His parents were killed on the street when he was there.
Right.
And
Right.
that would be pretty depressing, I think, for a kid to grow up with that. But I think they added a dimension maybe that was a little too dark.
So you think they went just a little too dark?
A little too dark because
Yeah, because
he had a lot of money and he had a servant, Alfred, who was very good to him. And
Yeah.
so he had a lot of good things.
Alfred's
going
always
to-
been one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
I can't think of an incarnation of Alfred that they haven't done good. Even the
Yeah.
Batman and Robin.
And I think they picked the right actor for that. I liked him. I always liked him.
Yeah.
I think of his name. But that part was done pretty well. The mansion and the Batmobile.
Right.
They went a little too deep with the dark personality. I don't think that was in the comics.
Yeah, so you just think they just went a little too much.
Too much. I think.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess part of it, I'm like, there's some parts I'm like, well, this has become more of a mob kind of movie, and do I really want my kids seeing this?
Yeah.
So,
Psycho. It was more of a psychodrama.
I guess there's some good and some bad there, but Christopher Nolan's moving on. He's going to let someone else come in, and maybe we'll go back to basics. Maybe some kind of a combination of serious and comedic. So what was your, favorite superhero?
Well, Superman.
Superman.
Was,
Okay.
yeah.
Most people's.
Yeah, and the first movie, the first Superman
Yes, very good.
was great. The origin Superman was excellent, done terrific. And Marlon Brando was his father, and Marlon Brando's a great actor, and it was really done very nicely. And then when he landed, and his parents were farmers, I guess. They lived out, well, at least they lived way out in the country. And his childhood, they did that very well. Very
Yeah,
nice.
I think so too. I mean, it really started. That was probably the first big superhero movie.
Yeah. Now, where they went a little bit off, I thought, was with the romance with Lois Lane. I don't remember, for kids, you never had that romantic aspect.
Yeah.
But for the movie, it added a dimension, and I think that it was well done.
Okay.
It was very well done. When he took her for the ride, you didn't mind it, even though it was out of the context of the Superman story.
Oh,
It was out of context, but it was very well done, I think.
So the basic origin story was the same, but you still like the stuff they brought into it.
I did. I didn't think the villains were done well. They make them out kind of silly.
Yeah, it's either super silly or super serious. I think that's one of the things. The villains are really, really hard to get right. So what about, you said you listened to some of the serials and watched some of the serials of Superman?
The serials, you had the radio serials were 15 minutes anyhow, and then in the movies you had a serial every week.
Yeah, I've watched them.
Chapters,
Good.
15 chapters. They called them cliffhangers, because each week the hero would look like he's being killed.
Right.
You have to come back the next week to see how he escaped. There were some really wonderful serials. I used to love those serials. They were really great. Captain America was a serial. Not that well known, but he was great. He traveled on a motorcycle, and it was a terrific story. I remember that very well, that serial.
I guess when we go into Captain America, I guess he was one of your favorites.
Yeah, he was very well liked. The comic books for Captain America, very colorful, very nice. We all liked it.
What did you think? You said we watched Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yeah.
Which came out in 2011.
Yeah.
What did you think of
It's a good movie.
What did you think of the little boys with all the comic books?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a nice touch.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. It was a good movie. I would like to see him in his costume more.
Yeah, we'll see.
And on a motorcycle if possible.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a signature thing. The motorcycle.
Yeah.
And the shield.
The serials, some of it was not superheroes. Some of it were just great stories. Like they had one called The Haunted Harbor. It was about a monster, a sea monster. It was scaring people, came up in a harbor. Remember that? That was extremely well done. And then there was a Dick Tracy serial that was made in 1940 about the villain there was the Invisible Man. It was darn right scary and very exciting, very well done. Perils of Nyoka. The Jungle Girl, Nyoka the Jungle Girl.
So I guess a little back to Captain America. Tell me about, you were how old during the war?
Well, the war broke out when I was, 1941, I was 6.
Okay.
I was in first grade. I was home with scarlet fever. In fact, I was listening to the radio when the Pearl Harbor news broke out. Which reminds me of another great hero of childhood, and that was the Lone Ranger.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. The Lone Ranger was on for a half hour of complete story 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for a half hour, and they were great. The acting was terrific. The characters were great. The villains, the stories, wonderful stories. The Lone Ranger was and Tonto. They were a great pair. They were great heroes for all of us kids. I would put Lone Ranger pretty high up under Superman. And the Lone Ranger movie, there were a couple of them, but one of them in particular was done extremely well. where it shows the origin, where Tonto found him.
Mm-hmm.
He was a ranger. He got shot up pretty bad with some other rangers.
Right.
Tonto found him and nursed him to health, and then they rode together for a great story, great movie.
So how did it feel like watching some of these programs during the war? You know, you're watching while, you know, overseas they're fighting for the country. I mean, Captain America was a huge symbol. I mean, it's Captain America.
Right.
So, like, what drew you to Captain America? Was it just that everybody was into Captain America?
I don't know. It was the uniform. It was partly that he was represented this country. We were at war with Germany and Japan. He was fighting the Germans and the Japs. It was very colorful. The comic book was really quite nice. And, you know, as kids, our attachment or our connection with the war was through the comics. I mean, none of us understood the serious news programs on the radio or the articles in the newspapers about the war. There's plenty of it. My father was listening all the time and reading all the time. But for the kids, the connection to World War II was through the comics.
Oh, okay, I see.
They were always fighting the Japs and the Germans all the time. And we loved it because we hated them and they were our enemies, and the heroes came along, and, you know, it would be Adolf Hitler and it would be Captain America socking him.
Right, just like in the movie.
It's true, because he did in the comics. He really did.
So you liked of course, the movie. So you thought it was a good...
It's a good movie.
Good transfer.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Not enough of him in the costume, though.
Right.
But the origins of Captain America, I was not familiar with that. I don't know if they made that up or if it was ever in the comic book. His origins? I don't know.
I know there was a phase where, you know, it started around like 41 or something, and then it kind of went to the 50s, then it died down. A lot of comic books kind of died down in the 40s, and then there was a huge resurgence during like the early 60s. Where we got a lot of these characters that came together, become the Avengers.
Right.
So, and I guess you had already moved on.
Right,
Of course,
I moved on. Yeah.
By the 60s. So what about like besides the anime, so did you watch like the other live action superhero stuff? Like there was Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman was very popular. Yeah. And there was a TV show, Wonder Woman. I didn't think it was that great, but it was okay. It was okay. But in the comic books, it was very colorful and very well drawn. And yeah, I liked Wonder Woman in the comics. Forgot about her. She was also fighting the Germans and the Japs. That was good. Wonder Woman was a good comic strip.
Yeah, they're planning to make they're considering making a new TV show. So
really,
yeah,
another one.
Right. Hopefully it'll be better special effects and all that kind of all that jazz.
Yeah, what they really need to make these superhero movies work is to have some really good villains.
Yeah, villains.
Serious plots. You know,
give them a clear motive.
Yeah, motives and plots. Not just an incident where one guy's going to blow up the world and it's a race against time, whether you get there on time to ruin his plot. That's not enough.
Right.
A really good plot is more complex than that. And the heroes, the villains, may be insane, but they're very smart, and it's very complicated.
Yeah, I think that's what the Christopher Nolan's was going a little for. The complicated,
more complicated,
kind of complex stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think he's got the right idea.
Yes, you saw the trailer for the Man of Steel movie.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? It's kind of hard to...
It doesn't say very much.
It doesn't say very much. I heard one joke that it's like the Deadliest Catch movie. Like the Deadliest Catch show.
Yeah. I didn't know who that guy was who was walking, figuring out what kind of man he wants to be. Was that Clark Kent or...
I think some of it's still kind of a mystery.
Mystery, okay.
But that was Russell Crowe as, his father.
Oh, okay.
As Jor-El.
Yeah, Russell Crowe.
Yeah,
he'd be fine.
So also, there's been a lot of like remakes of some of this really old stuff. I guess 2 examples where they went wrong are Green Lantern and the Green Hornet.
Yeah, the Green Hornet was a great radio program. It was on for a half hour on Sundays. And, Kato was a serious, loyal servant. And he used to call Mr. Brick. What do we do now, Mr. Brick? Mr. Brick? And the Green Hornet was, he was an editor. He owned, I think he was a publisher of a newspaper. It was a good story. He became aware of all the great things that were going on in the city as publisher, and so he could fight on his own as the Green Hornet. And it was very serious. The movie was horrible, just horrible, just denigrated.
Yeah, I wasn't
whole
crazy about
idea.
it. It was very. I mean, I didn't really know much about the Green Hornet, but it was slapstick. Seth Rogen.
Yeah. No, Green Hornet was quite serious,
Yeah.
quite serious, and it was good. The stories were well written and very exciting. I even hear them occasionally now on Sirius, on the old time radio.
You
Once in a while, they'll
read
bring
the
back.
comics of Green Hornet?
Green Hornet comics were good too. Yeah. So even when I listen to the old Green Hornet shows, I do appreciate they were done well. The stories were good. Acting was great.
Yeah, I know there is something. The radio was huge. I know back then because you had to have all the images, make them up in your
Definitely,
mind. You know?
definitely. That's why when the movies or the TV shows fall short, it's because they don't live up to the image that you have.
Right.
And that's tough.
Yeah.
But it can be done. The Superman movie lived up in every way. I thought.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, some of the tunes they still give me goosebumps.
Uh-huh.
You know.
The Superman music.
Yeah, the Superman music, John Williams.
John Williams. Well,
It's just
can't beat that.
You can't.
beat him. No.
I mean, it's just. I mean, one of the first the Superman movie was one of the first blockbusters.
Uh-huh.
You know what we call them now, starting with probably Jaws.
Uh-huh.
I mean, after that, there were some ups and downs, and then of course we got Batman '89,
Yeah.
and I think you can always just start with Superman.
Yeah.
You know, if you'd say one superhero movie to recommend,
All right.
Superman movie, I'd probably say. I agree.
And you know, the futuristic, the space type programs were also very, very important. And I'm thinking now about, as a kid, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah.
Those were the two. They were in the comic strips, they were in the comic books, they made serials out of them. They were crude. The rocket ships were, by our standards today, were extremely crude.
Right.
We loved the space stories, the travel in space and going to the different planets and meeting all the crazy people from the other planets.
Right.
Like Star Wars was terrific. If they could do the Star Wars quality on Buck Rogers, it would be fantastic. Could make a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta, let's call George Lucas on the phone.
Yeah.
Get this done.
Yeah. I don't think they would make much money, but it would certainly make some people happy.
Yeah. Kind of bring back introduce some of the youth.
Yeah.
Some of the young people.
Right.
Buck Rogers.
That would be great. I mean, when I heard that the Shadow movie, that they made a movie out of the Shadow, because the Shadow was it was scary, and I can't call them well, he was a hero in a lot of ways, but he was mysterious and scary. And the Shadow movie was a real disappointment because it wasn't scary. It was more of an adventure story.
Right.
I can't picture what's his...
Was it Alec Baldwin?
Alec Baldwin
Alec
played
Baldwin.
the Shadow. I can't-
Yeah. Serious roles don't quite work. I think he's found his place in comedy.
That's right. He didn't fit the bill for the Shadow.
So whenever whenever you watch like these movies, replay your childhood, you know what you did as a child. Do they bring back a lot of memories? Like like the Shadow. Do they like bring back memories? Oh,
Yeah, but listening to the old radio programs, because they're on Sirius, they definitely bring back old memories. Much more than the movie. The movie just annoyed me in a way because it just didn't live up to the standards of Shadow. I mean, the Shadow was so scary. My mother wouldn't let me listen to it
Oh yeah.
when I was young. I wasn't allowed to because it kept me up at night. I couldn't go to sleep when I watched it. It was truly scary.
And it's kind of interesting because the Shadow's supposed to be like the good guy,
He's the good guy.
but it's just one of those kind of like Batman.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Well, that was true of the Green Hornet, by the way. The Green Hornet worked for the law, on the side of the law, but the police always thought that he was a criminal. They thought he was a bad guy. That was a little annoying. They never got the thing right. They never realized how much he was helping them. But that's what the storyline was about. They wanted to do it that way.
Right. Yeah, that happens in other kind of. Should they actually be part of, making the laws? The police policemen feel like it's their job.
Right.
You know, they get kind of mad whenever we get these superheroes involved.
Yeah.
Especially the dark characters like Batman.
Yeah.
You know.
That's true. The police always always wondered about Batman, whether he was good or
Yeah.
not. Superman, no question about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why some people are anti-Superman because they think he's just too good.
Too good.
You know,
Yeah.
he's a goody-goody. So that's why they had to figure out something for his Achilles heel, kryptonite, of
Yeah.
course.
The great thing about Superman was the Clark Kent thing, where he had two personalities.
Yeah, I mean, completely different. I was just watching
Yeah.
Superman 2, and he's just like so different.
So different.
You know?
So laid back. So almost passive, almost chicken.
Yeah,
You know, and Lois always chided for, "Oh, Clark, where were you?
yeah,
Did you run away?"
Yeah.
Like she's always trying to tell him that, what happened to you when all the action was occurring?
Yeah.
I was there, Superman was there, where were you?
yeah.
Well, he would say in a mild voice, "Well, Lois, I don't know what happened. I think I got knocked out and fell asleep or
Yeah.
something." You know, and he had this mild voice, and
Yeah.
he kept up that story like that, and
Yeah.
it just added a lot. It added a lot to the whole thing.
So what about some interesting kind of stuff? I'm not sure if it was quite explored in the comics, like him spinning the world around to save
Oh,
Lois. What did you think of that?
Oh, too much.
Too much. And then in the second one, of course, he wiped
Yeah.
her memory
Yeah.
of him being Superman.
Yeah.
Are those kind of things
A little
like kind
too.
of
I'm not impressed. I like the villain, the insane villain.
yeah, like General Zod.
Yeah.
He'll be
yeah.
he's going to be the
Yeah.
enemy of the new Superman, of Man of Steel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be good. There was another villain in Superman. I forgot his name. He had a funny shaped face.
So like, what would be like, you know, from the comics you've read? I know a lot of times the characters would kind of like collide with each other. What did you think of the chemistry between like, you know, Batman and Superman?
Well, it was interesting on the radio program, the 15-minute serial. Unexpectedly, Batman showed up in that story, in the Superman story.
Mhm.
I forgot exactly what the context was. So you had a chance to hear them both together. And that was kind of, here I am. I'm probably about 10 years old, 11 years old when I'm listening to that. And I really was very curious what's going to be like. How is Batman going to talk to Superman? Two superheroes. I just don't remember. I do remember when it happened. I don't remember what I thought of it all. Their voices, I was very interested in how their two voices would sound next to
Yeah.
each other. You know?
Yeah, the art of voice acting is definitely coming back. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you've listened to many audiobooks or radio dramas.
Excellent voices, yeah.
Excellent voices. Like I've listened to some of the Star Wars radio dramas. Great.
Uh-huh.
You know, they get the real.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they even got Anthony Daniels for
Uh-huh.
for the radio dramas. The other ones they sounded pretty similar.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Yeah, the radio, they had some great voices. Yeah.
hmm I mean, I watch a lot of animated stuff, and there's some voices where I'm like, come on, get out and do some radio. You know, voice some stuff on some radio. I know one guy can 100 sounds. You know, the art of your voice acting, it goes back so
Yeah,
100
it was
years.
everything. Yeah. Well, there was a guy by the name of Mel Blanc, and he did Bugs Bunny, and he could do anything. He could do an old broken down car, you know, puffing and chugging and make it. And he did Bugs Bunny, and he was great. The guy that did Superman, his name was Bud Collyer. He was great. He had a great Superman voice. And the Lone Rangers always had a terrific voice. And there were a bunch of them. But every time one left the show or died or whatever, they brought another one, it would be the same voice.
Yeah,
You
that's when you got talent. In there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they didn't want to give up on that voice, because that was like a mark of the character, that particular
Right.
voice.
Yeah, I know some of the shows, like the show I'm watching right now, Star Wars: The Clone Wars. James Arnold Taylor does a great Obi-Wan. A lot of the, because it's kind of hard to, they can't hire some of the people that were in the movies, because it's so expensive. But it's amazing how, you can just listen to these people and just like make them their own. Your own.
Yeah.
That's why these, cartoons, animated superhero cartoons, are really popular now.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, the cartoons on
Yeah.
the TV, yeah.
Right.
But what about the comic books now? Do people buy them?
Well, people buy them, but they've gone haywire, I guess you'd say. I mean, I know Marvel, there's like 20 different universes.
Really?
Yeah, there's so many different, like
Oh.
Earth 1, Earth 2. there's like, there's like there's like 3 different Green Hulks.
Really?
And there's like She-Hulk. I know there's like 4 or 5 different Green Lanterns.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm not huge into the comic books. I'm trying to get into them, but as what I've heard from people, they've kind of just gone haywire. They're not worth as much as they used to be. You can't really resell them. I mean, it's unfortunate,
That's too bad.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess one good thing is that there's something for basically anybody. If you want Superman to face a giant crab, it's out there. When to fight a gorilla, it's out there.
Well, the grown-ups, when I was a kid, grown-ups didn't really read comic books very much. But one thing they did do was on the Sunday paper, there was always a cartoon, a comic section. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking now in New York was the Daily News and the Daily Mirror. Not the Times never had cartoons, but the News did. And the most popular comic was Dick Tracy. Mm-hmm. Even the grown-ups followed Dick Tracy, because it was an excellent cartoon. It was always character villains, mm-hmm. But they were done well. And the stories were very good, and people really did follow Dick Tracy from week to week.
Yeah. So it was one of those shows where, like, pretty much any age
read those.
So that's when you got a series.
Yeah.
When pretty much anybody out of any age can get something out of it.
Yeah, Dick Tracy was very, very well liked. And there was a disappointment, the movie. Because the movie was silly.
Yeah.
The villains were silly. They tried to make it too much like a comic book. Instead, make it a movie.
Yeah, I mean, it can't get complicated, Yeah. Like the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. They tried to go a little cartoony. I know Batman and Robin. A lot of the designs were from a toy company.
Oh, really?
Were you ever into the like action figures and stuff?
I wasn't. My best friend had a Superman statuette about that high, and every time I went to visit him, and he lived across the street, I would always play with that because it was done well. Oh, and I'll tell you another thing about Superman. Christmas time at Macy's in New York, you had not only Santa Claus there for kids to come and visit, you had Superman was there. And wow, was that exciting to go to Macy's. And what he would do to show his strength, I think it was something to do with an elevator door. And when it came time to open that elevator door, he made it look like it was hard to open. He had to use his power to open up that elevator door. But Superman at Macy's was a big feature.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
So any other? So I guess was as far as like Superman, Batman. Like, what was your? If you had to pick, like, what was your like favorite media of them? Radio, comics, movies. I mean, is it just too hard to pick?
I think I would go for radio.
The radio.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's because it was my first introduction to them. But after school, I would listen. Not so much in the nice weather. I think we all preferred to be out in the street playing. But as soon as it started getting cold, like it was middle of October already, it was getting cold. And a lot of us would play a little bit outside, then we would rush in and listen to some of these stories. We called them the stories.
The stories.
Yeah, the stories. And we all had our favorites. There was 2 stations that had them. One was Mutual and one was American. And so they ran for 2 hours on 2 different stations, so you had so many to pick from. And everybody had their favorites. And I think that they were so important to me. They were so good, They were so great. Stories were so good. And of course it had a lot to do with the Germans and the Japs again.
Right.
Okay. But I think my favorite was Hop Harrigan, because I liked the airplanes of the day.
Yeah.
To the kids, the fighter planes and the bombers of World War II.
Yeah.
It was a big, big thing. And Hop Harrigan was a fictional fighter pilot. And he had a buddy by the name of Tank Tinker, who was more of a mechanic, I guess. But Hop Harrigan, ace of the airways. I don't think anything that ever came along ever was as good to me as those radio programs.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably something that, any Superman should check out, explore all these different medias. Any Batman fan should check out any of these medias.
Yeah.
Not just stay. So you try to kind of expand your interest in these kind of things. Kind of go to each kind of media.
Movies now is the media, of course.
Yeah.
If I were going to make a movie, I would go back to these radio programs, and then most of them are transcribed, and I would try to capture the story and the villains and the settings and the whole atmosphere.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the only audience for that, but I don't know. But that's what I would do
Yeah.
if I were going to do that.
Yeah. Sometimes, audiences are very narrow-minded, but then there's just as many who are open-minded, For example, like those Batman movies. I mean, they rolled the dice when they did these. Nothing we had seen before,
All right.
All of them,
They're very successful, right?
Yeah, very successful. I mean, they have, they do affect people, such as the shooting. Movies can have an effect on us, and it can make some people, it's a shame. The Dark Knight Rises, it'll always be known. Fortunately, I saw it before I heard about the shooting. I saw the midnight showing, but I know the box office, it didn't do as good. But I guess the great thing about movies, I guess it kind of brings us all together, these fans. Whenever you listen to the radio, read comic books, you're at the store together,
Oh, definitely.
You're all kind of like, the fans are always together, and when someone takes that away, it's just...
Well, that was a shame. I hope that doesn't leave any kind of a stigma on...
Yeah, I don't think
I don't think he was a nut.
Yeah.
He would have done it any place, anywhere. I don't think the movie particularly...
Yeah, I don't think so either, but, I mean, he was kind of like going over the Joker.
Yeah. But if it's not one thing, a crazy guy like that, he'll find something to... identify with.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some people find that they identify with the villain. Unfortunately,
exactly.
But then others, we identify with the heroes.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, identifying with Captain America, you're patriotic.
Yeah.
Who else are you gonna?
Definitely.
Captain America got got the flag and everything.
Can't beat it. Beat it.
And the thing about Captain America also is that, they thought some countries they were just going to call it the first Avenger because they weren't sure if the countries wanted to have America in it.
Oh.
And, they said, fine, let's, just leave Captain America in there. We love Captain America. So it's cool how it's also gone way past our country. It's gone all corners of the earth.
That's nice. That is nice.
DC and Marvel. And I think, even though the movies have made mistakes, I think it also is, it's how it's created more and more fans across the world.
Yeah. It opens up the markets for them.
Yeah,
they make
more money. And then, of course, today's world, there's the video games and the action figures are big, especially in the 80s. So the market's constantly changing, but I'm hoping we're still going to get back to some of that older stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you like to, if they release those radio dramas in some kind of special package or something like that.
Yeah.
You can find it on YouTube.
You can buy, and I haven't done it yet, but you can buy practically anything now.
Yeah.
Of the record cassettes.
Yeah.
Of all these old radio programs. And I have listened to some of them. Jack Armstrong was another one. Wheaties. That was another part of those radio programs, was the advertisements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I listened to an episode of The Shadow, and they had like advertisement for some kind of cars, tires.
Yeah, a lot of adults listen to The Shadow, but for the programs that were on for the kids from 4 to 6, they would be advertising for cereal generally. Mm-hmm. It was Wheaties and Cheerios, Quaker Oats. Oh God, Quaker Oats advertised so many.
Yeah.
And Captain Marvel was another favorite. Mm-hmm. It wasn't on the radio as much, but the comic book, the Captain Marvel comic book. Mm-hmm. I didn't see much in the way of movies or anything like that.
Yeah, we really haven't. I mean, they haven't really explored so much. It's mainly just been, Marvel kind of stuff. I mean, they've attempted some other. I'm not sure if you ever saw they made a Captain America pilots, a couple of TV movies.
Oh, yeah.
And one, he didn't want to be like his father and be a super soldier. He didn't want to be a super soldier. He wanted to be an artist. Oh. He still had the motorcycle, so that was kind of cool. Motorcycle. But. They also had like a Spider-Man TV show that ran for a few episodes. Uh-huh. And then, I guess, one of the few that actually stands out is the Incredible Hulk series.
Uh-huh. That's a relatively new cartoon, I think, Hulk.
Right. I mean,
it came later.
Yeah. Of course it was after time, but I know in the 60s, it's called the Silver Age of comics. That's when we got tons of comics. It's like the equivalent of the oil business starts. We get tons and tons of superheroes. Most of the superheroes
Yeah.
Start in the 60s, And that's when we, got the Hulk.
It came back.
And then the 70s, that's when we started getting a lot of TV stuff. They tried to bring a lot of the, superheroes to television.
Yeah.
Most of them didn't do so good. Like Doctor Strange, they tried to make a pilot with that, There's some other kind of TV pilots they tried to do.
Uh-huh.
You can't ever, it's never perfect. You can never get it perfectly off the page.
Right.
There's some stuff that just works in that format.
Yeah, and I wonder what they're thinking when they produce these things. Well, they want to make money.
I know one of the movies. It's like they didn't really care how much they were going to make the movie. They just wanted the toys.
Oh, really?
I know this one movie, Batman and Robin. A lot of the stuff on that, a lot of the guns and cars, designed by the toy company. And it kind of makes. And when you look at it, it kind of looks a little goofy.
Yeah.
And then
The toy part of it, during Halloween season, for example, you go through the stores and you see Superman costumes, Batman costumes, and so forth.
Yeah.
They're done so well. I mean, if I had access to something like that as a kid, I would have been crazy.
Yeah.
We had nothing like that. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Yeah, it's really last half century. It's really the marketing has kind of gone up. That's why some people kind of criticize the whole superheroes because it's just about the marketing stuff.
Yeah.
It's just about the toys.
Yeah.
And that's where they get a lot of their money from these.
Yeah.
Is from the toys and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have much of anything. We had, if you could get a 6-shooter, a cat, it would shoot caps. They were not cheap, but a lot of us, we had a gun, a cowboy gun. And
Same like you're the Lone Ranger.
And like a Lone Ranger. And of course, the Lone Ranger had 2 guns.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he had crossed belts.
Right.
And none of us had 2. It would be a very strange kid who had 2.
Yeah.
So we had to wear 1, and we were pretty happy with that. But Tonto only had 1 gun, so we felt pretty good about that. We did have the holster, and if even a cowboy hat, like with the Lone, they're in the stores now.
Right.
Oh, kids would have gone nuts back when I was a kid or something like that. We just didn't have it.
Right. I mean.
Just didn't have
I mean, pretty much you can mix cowboys with anything now. I mean, they came out with the movie Cowboys and Aliens, which is based on a graphic novel, Cowboys and Aliens. You think, how can you go wrong?
Yeah.
It didn't. It kind of. Some people didn't like it that much. Some people hated it. I thought it was pretty good.
It was okay. I would like to see another cowboy movie, a real cowboy movie. Mm-hmm. I think they're great.
Yeah.
They're great. Gunsmoke was very popular, both in the radio and another very popular radio program. Half hour every week was Gangbusters. That was based on, I guess J. Edgar Hoover and, the FBI guys. Early.
Well, I'm glad we got to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Learned a lot of stuff. Thanks for joining.
Okay, it was fun to think back on these things.
Yeah.